You're watching Viewpoint. I'm Afrida Rahman Ali. The RSS Chief Mohan Bhagwat has yet again made a statement which some observers and commentators call quote unquote bold and welcoming statement to promote unity and harmony in the country. While there are others who are circumspect and who feel that there is always one statement followed by another that balances it out. So there is only so much that you can draw out from such words, and it largely ends up being inconsequential because this is not the first time that Mr. Bhagwat has made this so called overture of peace and harmony. So let me put this in context. This is about the statement made in Pune on the subject of India as Vishwa Guru on the 19th of December, when Mohan Bhagwat said that we have been living in harmony for a long time and therefore we need to keep at it after the construction of the Ram Mandir. He said some people now think that they can become leaders of the Hindus by raking up similar issues in new places. So he sent out a word of caution saying, let's just stop at that and not rake up similar issues of temples being buried under mosques over and over again. So there is a pushback now. Say, for instance, an organization called the Akhil Bharatiya Sant Samiti, which has objected to these statements. These are all Hindutva aligned organizations. They say religious matters should be decided by religious leaders. So there is this pushback, like I said, which comes after Bhagwat advocated for an inclusive society and suggested not looking for shivlings in every mosque. So let me welcome Mr. Faizan Mustafa joining me here on the program. He is the Vice Chancellor of Chanakya National Law University in Patna, also an author and a commentator. Good evening, Professor Mustafa. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Let me begin by asking you then, because you are one of those, I imagine, who believe that this is a message of peace. This must be welcome. It is also very bold in a way, because many believe it is sort of contrarian to the RSS ideology and the temple politics, which has been practiced by BJP, drawing from the RSS ideology. Why do you feel that Mr. Bhagwat's words, like you say, must be taken seriously by liberals and must be welcomed?
No, Afrida, I have been writing on Mohan Bhagwat for almost 10 years. My first article on his statement was in 2015 Bihar elections, when he said that there is a need for a debate on reservation, and BJP disowned the RSS chief within 24 hours. And in 48 hours, RSS spokesperson also tried to twist what the RSS chief has said, that his intention was not this and that. And in the whole country, I was the only one who, after waiting for good 2 weeks, wrote an article in support of the RSS chief saying that everybody got him wrong. He has not said reservation should be abolished. What he has said, that let us debate what are the benefits, whether the benefits of reservation have percolated down the ladder. And he has not indicated, this is his problem, what will be the issues of debate. So I identified all the issues on which one should have a debate on reservation. And since then, in last 10 years or so, I have written about 15 articles on him. So there is a consistency by and large in his statements of unity, promoting harmony between communities. There have been some inconsistent statements as well. I personally believe that when you have an organization of 100 years, the transformation cannot take place overnight. And that is why I am saying that the liberals and Muslims, one, must have patience with Mohan Bhagwat, and two, they must understand that RSS chief, by making these statements, is trying to initiate a kind of perestroika in India, that the Hindutva is trying to reinvent itself. The Hindutva of V.D. Savarkar, which happened, in the wake of Khilafat movement, in the wake of demand of Pakistan, was of a different kind.
Yeah.
And an RSS chief is saying that Hindus and Muslims, you know, they have the same DNA. When he is saying that to say that Hindus alone have a right to live in India or
Hmm.
have a superior right to live in India, you see that he is trying to go back and
Hmm.
deviate from the original Hindutva position that
Hmm.
only those for whom India is a Pitra Bhumi as well as Punna Bhumi would alone have a right to live here. And that is why I believe that look at the kind of criticism the man is facing. I had quoted in my latest article Madhu Kishwar
Hmm.
is speaking all kinds of things against RSS chief. The former CBI chief has also said that he is not even, a representative of Hindutva, even though
Hmm.
RSS chief, in my opinion, is the most authoritative Hindutva voice in the country. All other
Hmm.
organizations of Hindutva basically draw sustenance and
Hmm.
inspiration from RSS. And then this Sant Samiti, to which you made a reference in your
Yeah.
intro, to which I also made a reference in my article in Indian Express, they are saying that RSS should mind its business and should not interfere in the religious matters where our word should prevail. So
Hmm.
he is
Would you
fighting.
say, Mr. Mustafa, that Mohan Bhagwat is trying to draw a difference or strike a difference between bigotry and Hindutva? He's not deviating from the Hindutva ideology. He is trying to say that it's not the form of bigotry that is being projected as Hindutva. Do you believe that is perhaps his intention here?
I think he is going ahead with more than that. It's not just a
Hmm.
condemnation of bigotry, and I see, a systematic evolution in the man. So, to begin with, in some time in 2018 or so, he is saying that the British are responsible for sowing the seeds of communalism. And
Hmm.
he picks up the example of Haldi Ghati and says that, well, the Mughal forces were led by Man Singh and Afghans were fighting on the side of Maharana Pratap. And then he also said in another statement, the Britishers told Hindus that if you do not control Muslims, they are aggressive people, they will overtake you in everything, and told Muslims that due to your numerical inferiority, you have a great threat from a massive majority of Hindus, some over 80% at that point of time. Then
Okay.
he says, why we are talking of unity? Unity should be there when there are two different persons. Both Hindus and Muslims are one and same. And
Yeah.
therefore, unity is not to be talked like this.
Yeah, I'm in fact
Then
putting
he
out some
says,
of his statements on the screen as well because he has made a number of statements, references, which you are also making. So carry on, Mr. Mustafa. Yeah.
so what I'm saying, then he says that there cannot be Hindu Rashtra without Muslims.
Hmm. Hmm.
मुसलमानों के बिना हिंदुत्व की परिकल्पना असंभव है.
Yeah,
Now this
September
is
2018 is when he said that. So, like you said, there has been a
so
consistency in this messaging.
yeah, that then he by 2021 he is saying that their DNA is same. Then
Hmm.
he is
Hmm.
saying those who are indulging in mob lynching are not Hindus.
Hmm.
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 Then he's saying
Yeah.
Muslims should not fear. Then he's saying Hindus don't have a superior right to live in India.
Yeah.
So I believe that he is evolving. Then in the context of Gyanvapi, he's saying, why are you looking for shivling in every mosque? And
Yes.
the latest statement is a very, very pointed statement. It is an
Hmm.
indictment of some leaders who made
Hmm.
political fortunes out of Ram Temple campaign. Now he says that Ram Temple campaign had nothing to do with politics, but as you must have read in my article, I quoted
Yes.
that late
Yes.
Sushma Swaraj herself in
Hmm.
Bhopal in
Hmm.
2000 had admitted that it had nothing to do with religion and it was largely political. But
Hmm. Hmm.
what the point which he made in the context of Gyanvapi, and a point which he has reiterated number of times, is that that was a different kind of a case. Here was a birthplace of Lord Ram, and the kind of support which RSS given to Babri Masjid Ram Janmabhoomi campaign, it will not extend similar campaign to other places of worship. And now he is saying that there are people who want to quickly become the political leaders on the basis of such campaigns. I think it is a huge indictment of a new breed of leadership which wants to experiment with something which Lal Krishna Advani, initially started.
But the support is not coming for his statements. I mean, he almost stands alone in this. Am I right in that observation that he seems to be isolated?
Yes,
I'll play out a few statements, Mr. Mustafa, before I come to you on that, about whether he's isolated and alone in this. Because let's hear out the Hindu seers who have
जहाँ तक मैं समझता हूँ जो इतिहास है वो इतिहास की जानकारी नई पीढ़ी को अवश्य होना चाहिए कि हमारे साथ क्या हुआ, कैसे हुआ, और भारत में किस तरीके से नंगा नाच किया अताताइयों ने, और किस तरीके से, जैसे कुछ तो प्रत्यक्ष है, प्रमाण है उसके, जैसे भोजशाला है, कृष्ण जन्मभूमि मंदिर है, कृष्ण जन्मभूमि, और आपका जो है काशी विश्वनाथ जो है, ये तो हमारे यहाँ वो एकदम जो है ज्ञानवापी जिसे कहते हैं, ज्ञानवापी उसके नाम से ही प्रतीत होता है कि वो मंदिर की जगह है.
There is also Yogi, Baba Ramdev.
ये सच है कि आक्रांताओं ने आकर के हमारे मंदिर, हमारे धर्म स्थान, हमारे सनातन के गौरव चिन्हों को नष्ट भ्रष्ट किया और इस देश को बहुत क्षति पहुंचाई. सनातन के जितने भी हमारे तीर्थ थे, हमारे देवी देवताओं की प्रतिमाएं थी, उनको खंडित किया. अब उनको कितना दंडित करें, कितना न करें, ये तो काम न्यायपालिका का है. लेकिन इतनी बात जरूर है, जो हमारे बड़े तीर्थ हैं, बड़े गौरव के स्थान हैं, उनके ऊपर तो कुछ निर्णय करना ही चाहिए, जिससे कि जिन आक्रांताओं ने सनातन का विध्वंस मचाया, उन पापियों के उस पाप का थोड़ा फल तो मिलना चाहिए.
So I want your observation and your comments on two things. Of course, on whether Mr. Bhagwat is alone in this, and secondly, Nyayapalika ka kya role hai? So if you can expand on that, please.
It looks like that he doesn't have the kind of a support which we expect, but it will take time. It will take time. In fact, when some leading Muslim intellectuals met Mohan Bhagwat ji, I had written a piece that both sides must be ready for frustrations and disappointments, because both sides may go back to their original stated positions. And a dialogue requires a lot of patience. This is what I had written. And exactly the same thing has happened. But he keeps saying that we must continue to make endeavor. It is like the same uniform civil code word which comes to my mind, that the state shall endeavor to have a uniform civil code. So RSS chief and all of us must continue to make endeavor that we do not live in past. What Baba Ramdev ji is saying, he is suggesting that we settle the historical disputes by the invocation of judicial forum. But the Supreme Court itself, in the Babri Masjid judgment, a 5-judge constitution bench has said that the principle we follow is non-retrogression, and the court is not the right place to rectify the historical wrongs. The problem, Afrida, is if you go into history, there is no end to it.
There is no end to it.
Yes. Not stop just on the demolition of temples by Muslims. You have to go to the demolitions of, Buddhist places of worship. by the
Yeah,
Hindu king, and the demolition of Kul Devta temples of each other by the Hindu kings. So where you are
where will
really
you
going
stop?
to stop? And
Hmm.
therefore, a country which aspires to be a developed nation by 2047 should look forward rather than look backward. In any case, the law today does not allow us what Baba Ramdev ji is saying, or the other spiritual guru is saying that itihas pata chalna chahiye. When the law says
But
that
did we
whatever
not
is
have
the
Mr.
religious character,
Chandrachud? Yeah.
whatever is the religious character cannot be changed. So, as we say in Urdu, gunahe bi lazzat se kya fayda?
Hmm.
Why are we trying to see what was the exact character? Isn't so? If we cannot change it,
Hmm.
in social relations, we need a healing touch. The 1991 law provided that healing touch.
Yeah.
I have myself written, and this is my position, and many liberals and many Muslims are very upset with me, Afrida, for writing this. I said that in the case of Babri Mosque, in terms of historical and archaeological evidence, nothing has been proved that a Ram temple was demolished to construct the Babri Mosque. And this is the biggest finding for Muslims in the Babri Masjid judgment, because this was the central plank of Vishwa Hindu Parishad
Hmm.
and the whole
Hmm.
temple movement,
Yeah.
that a grand Ram temple was demolished by Mir Baqi and a Babri Mosque. On the contrary, in case of Mathura as well as in case of Kashi, there is historical evidence that these two temples were partially, demolished. And since there is evidence of this, it is better that the local communities in the two towns, very sensitive towns, historical towns, should sit together, and through mediation, through arbitration, without involving clergy, without involving political leadership, without involving national leadership, should amicably resolve it. Why I'm saying so? In litigation route, one party wins, the other party loses. In
Hmm.
mediation and arbitration, nobody loses, nobody wins. So
Hmm.
let there be a solution on which both the parties can come out and say, we also got something. And that would create better harmony and unity in the country, to which Mohan Bhagwat.
I understand what you're saying, Professor Mustafa. I do understand that in an ideal situation, you want that both sides should have that good sense prevailing over them to go through mediation wherever there is that sort of a dispute. But in reality,
If the
these are
goal of
competing narratives.
2047 is to be achieved.
Yeah, but these are competing narratives. There are enough people out there who are saying that देखिए हम जहाँ पे मंदिर थे वहां पे पांव रख के मस्जिद के अंदर एंटर किया जा रहा है. So there is this attempt to whip up communal sentiments, and of course one may argue that there are enough political agendas behind it as well, because after all the current ruling party relies on that Hindu consolidation, and of course there could be political agendas behind it. But how are you going to ensure that these political narratives, where one side is clearly louder than the other, that a voice of Mohan Bhagwat or a voice of a Professor Faizan Mustafa will be heard or will be consequential?
You see, it is the civil society ultimately which has to come forward. The ordinary people have to take things in their hands and say, enough is enough.
Hmm.
And they say that let us stop this madness of settling historical disputes at the cost of country's development. Ultimately, our GDP is not going to rise if we construct two more or five more, temples.
Hmm.
It's not going to happen. So let us concentrate on our GDP. Let us concentrate on our healthcare, on our education. Now, what happens? Many people would say, well, Mohan Bhagwat is inconsistent. Yes, he has been inconsistent. But my answer to that is, it is difficult to come out of your 100 years old narrative like this. So
Yeah.
let us understand the difficulties in this transition. To
Hmm.
his own people may not be absolutely on board, even though RSS is such a disciplined organization that to say that the RSS chief can simply speak anything out of blue without any consultation, it's difficult to believe. So I understand that within RSS also there is a thinking that what do you do with some 20 crore people? You know, you have to find a solution, and a final solution kind of a thing which some people think is not possible. When 1% Jews in Germany, in 30s and 40s could not be completely eliminated, how can you do it in 2024, 2025 about such a large number of Muslims? And a country cannot develop if 20% of its minorities really don't develop. So I think that better sense is going to prevail, and people will understand we should not simply condemn RSS chief because of some inconsistency, because of what other RSS leaders and Hindutva leaders are speaking. On the other side, also you find that there have been Muslim fanatics as well who have also been making, extremely provocative speeches. So I think give them space. Uh, the problem with many of our liberals is that they want immediate solutions. Like many Muslims say, let RSS chief come on record that he disassociate himself from VD Savarkar, from Golwalkar, from this and that. I think this is an unjust demand. Can a similar demand be made by Hindus that let all the Muslims, disown everything what happened in past? In any case, what Guru Ramdev was saying, for whom I have a very high respect for popularizing yoga, his business model is widely appreciated. He has made big fortunes also out of that model. How can present generation be held accountable for something which happened hundreds of years ago? Under criminal law, if I commit a crime, my father, my brother, my son cannot be held liable. So how can you hold me accountable for something which some ruler has done? When a state does anything, neither today anybody can be held accountable, not in future any generation can be held accountable, nor for the misdeeds of past rulers, present generation of any community can be held accountable.
Right. As a closing remark, I want to know from you, to those who are discrediting Mohan Bhagwat and his credentials and saying he's firstly not a Hindu leader. And secondly, what do you make of the political ramifications of all of this, where you have the BJP and the RSS, the political ideologue, also in some sort of a tangle, it seems now, where leaders have made statements in the past saying that it's time we grow out of the wings of RSS. How are you looking at this relationship now evolving after these statements or in the political context of this country?
No, one, I wrote in my article also that the next logical step, if you appreciate RSS chief, he will feel encouraged in making more such statements, and he would like to then take the next logical step of using his influence with the central government and with number of BJP state governments to see to it that you don't have any more new disputes coming up like this. This is one level. Two, I think uh, he can use his influence to tell people that in a democracy, how can you refuse to give representation or consider such a big number of your population? Look at Kundarki result. 65% Muslims are there, and a BJP candidate is winning with over 1.25 lakh or 1.5 lakh votes. It cannot happen unless Muslims are supporting. Then the data about 2024 election says that 12% Ashraf and 9% Pasmanda Muslims supported BJP. So in the cabinet, when you don't have any representation of the largest Muslim minority in the country, it goes against the principle of democracy, that all sections of the population must be represented, the diversity of the country should be represented. So RSS chief has tremendous influence over the BJP government. And there would be some consultation, some introspection, some discussion between the Sangh and the political leadership about the Muslim question. And I am sure that ultimately they would say that let us celebrate country's diversity. Let us celebrate the contribution made by Muslims, in India, and let us, as a principle of democracy, give them whatever is their legitimate share of power in a democracy. I have always said that the question of minority rights should be lifted from this narrative of communalism versus secularism, and should be talked in terms of equality and in terms of democracy. It is a question of democracy that a large group as about 20 crore Muslims, they feel fully secure in this country. They are, properly represented in all institutions of the country, and they have nothing to do either with Pakistan or with the past Muslim rulers, as Hindus have nothing to do with past Hindu rulers. Rulers know no religion. In one article, I had gone against RSS chief when he said Hindus have been at war for 1,000 years. I said this statement is not right, because Hindus or religions are not at war, rulers are at war. And I said when Islam was not even born, in Ramayana you had a war. When Islam was not born, in Mahabharata you had a war. When Islam was not born, Christianity was not born, you had Kalinga war. There have been wars between Hindu rulers, many wars. And therefore, rulers fight for political causes. At times, rulers of past and rulers of today use religion for their political purposes. The enlightened, their citizenry must understand this,
and must see through it, and they must see through it. Yeah, I think that's a very valid point, Professor Faizan Mustafa, that you made, that we must not punish the current generation for the wrongs of the past. How far back will you go? There is no end to it. And I'll take your words from the article that you wrote about how we have to let bygones be bygones if we want to be a developed nation. Professor Faizan Mustafa, thank you so much for joining me on Viewpoint. It was a pleasure having this conversation with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right. Well, that was an issue that indeed requires conversation, and one must understand from the perspective of those who have a good grasp of Indian history and politics, that why statements like this coming from none less than the RSS chief is important, must be looked at in the right context, and must be understood correctly, rather than attributing motives or dismissing it, or even in some cases, of course, discrediting Mr. Mohan Bhagwat. We leave it at that for now. Let me, in fact, now move to the other issue that we are covering today, on the sort of war of words that is going on in the national capital between the Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress Party. In fact, a stunning statement was made today in a press conference where Aam Aadmi Party says it seeks the removal of Congress Party from the opposition Indian National Development Inclusive Alliance, I hope I got that right, the India Alliance, if it did not take action against its leaders for the statements that have been made on Arvind Kejriwal. It accused Congress's Delhi unit of working with the BJP to ensure AAP's defeat in the Delhi elections. Actually, it is not really the first time that such an allegation has been made, but I want to introduce Anuj Kumar, who is with us right now, CEO of Datansh and also political analyst. Anuj, you'll have to unmute yourself. Welcome. Good evening. Let's get started.
Good evening, Afrida.
How are you doing? Tell
I'm
us what
fine.
you
I'm
made
fine.
of this press conference where these explosive statements have been made by two of the top leaders, one the Chief Minister of Delhi and the other a Member of Parliament Sanjay Singh, coming out and calling out the Congress, as it were, for colluding with the BJP.
So actually, like one of the things which is happening in the Indian politics today, if you look at all the statements which are being made, they are very finite and very like if somebody will come out and say कि भाई Kejriwal is not there, it is Farjiwar. So what you say that we are only looking at things from black and white. So कभी कभी क्या होता है हम ऐसे statements दे देते हैं that there is no scope for further discussion or going any way backward or forward. So calling Arvind Kejriwal anti-national. So anti-national is a very big word, and we use it like we will call anybody who is not willing to accept what we are saying as anti-national and then side mein karo usko. So that is what is happening. And one of the things which is there with the India alliance is that the alliance as such, we say that it is an alliance, but it doesn't have the basic requisites of an alliance. Like, for example, it doesn't have any formal structure. There is no convener. And secondly, like Congress is the only party which has got a pan-India presence. And it is again all the other regional parties which are coming together with the Congress in the alliance.
Yeah.
So obviously, naturally, at the state level, there will be a competition between the parties, like the Congress in West Bengal, in Bihar, so in some states which are bigger, for example, Uttar
Yeah.
Pradesh, Bihar, they have been able to make some kind of a seat adjustments. But in states like Delhi, which we can say is a small state, and perhaps we are not able to get into some kind of a adjustment on seats. So Congress is competing against the Aam Aadmi Party for electoral gains in this state. Now, there are two ways of looking at things. One is that you start criticizing the leaders, because it is not between the Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress. It is rather a battle of personalities. On one side, you have Sandeep Dixit, who is very critical of Arvind Kejriwal, probably because of the past things which he has said about his mother. So it is more like a personality-driven kind of a contest.
Yeah.
So
in
what
fact,
we
I
are
will play
saying-
out those statements, Anuj, so that people understand, the references that you're making. First, I think we should
अरविंद
listen to this
केजरीवाल जी
press conference
जो हमारी पार्टी के
addressed by
अगुवा
Sanjay
हैं,
Singh and Atishi.
उनको कह रहे हैं एंटी नेशनल है केजरीवाल। केजरीवाल अगर एंटी नेशनल है तो आप मुझे बताइए, वो केजरीवाल दिल्ली के लोगों के लिए शिक्षा, स्वास्थ्य, बिजली, पानी, रोजगार का इंतजाम कैसे कर रहे हैं?
इनमें प्रमुख फरहाद सूरी हैं, जो जंगपुरा से चुनाव लड़ रहे हैं, और सुनने में आया है कि उनको भारतीय जनता पार्टी से करोड़ों में फंड आ रहा है। तो आज हम कांग्रेस पार्टी से ये पूछना चाहते हैं कि वो दिल्ली में भारतीय जनता पार्टी को क्यों चुनाव लड़वा रहे हैं। अगर उन्हें आम आदमी पार्टी से दिक्कत है, अगर उन्हें लगता है हम एंटी नेशनल है, तो लोकसभा चुनाव में उन्होंने गठबंधन में चुनाव क्यों लड़ा? क्यों अरविंद केजरीवाल से प्रचार करवाया? ये बिल्कुल साफ हो गया है कि दिल्ली के चुनाव में कांग्रेस के दिल्ली के नेताओं ने भारतीय जनता पार्टी से साठगांठ कर ली है।
So, this has been actually said by Congress
और जब
also at
कांग्रेस की
one
बात
point
आती
that
थी तो कहते थे
AAP is
कांग्रेस का कोई
colluding
बेस ही
with,
नहीं है। ये चाहते हैं कि उन लोगों पे जिनको ये सबसे भ्रष्ट माना करते थे, इन्होंने कहा था शरद पवार हिंदुस्तान का सबसे भ्रष्ट नेता है। ये तो लालू जी पे भी आरोप लगाया करते थे, आज उनके बेटे के साथ घूम रहे हैं। ये चाहते हैं कि उन लोगों पे जिनको ये सबसे भ्रष्ट माना करते थे, इन्होंने कहा था शरद पवार हिंदुस्तान का सबसे भ्रष्ट नेता है, उनसे कह रहे हैं कि दूसरी पार्टियों को अलग कर दो। तो ये इनकी नैतिकता को तो कभी विश्वास ही नहीं किया जा सकता है। और जहां तक इनके सवालों की बात है, इनके आरोपों की बात है, इनसे कहो प्रूव करो ना, सरकार तो तुम्हारी है।
उम्मीदवारी क्या चैलेंजेस है केजरीवाल के सामने, जो सीधा आरोप आप पर है कि संदीप दीक्षित को फंडिंग भाजपा से हो रही है?
भाई पूछो, इन्हीं से पूछो कि ये मेरे आरोपों पे इतनी उत्तेजित क्यों हो गई। ये खुद ही कहते थे, करीबन आज से मुझे याद है 3-4 महीने पहले, इनके जितने नेता टीवी पे आते थे कहते थे कि हमारी बीजेपी की सीधी लड़ाई है और बीजेपी को हम चारों खाने चित्त कर रहे हैं। और जब कांग्रेस की बात आती थी तो कहते थे कांग्रेस का कोई बेस ही नहीं है। तो अगर कांग्रेस का कोई बेस ही नहीं है तो हमारी बातों में इतने परेशान क्यों हो रहे हैं?
So that is the thing, like you mentioned, Sandeep Dixit also probably has a bone to pick with Arvind Kejriwal. And you know, I find it interesting that there was a point where Congress used to say that AAP and BJP are together. Now AAP is coming out and saying, and it's quite, interesting that you should think, even imagine of a situation where Congress and BJP are together against AAP. So again, if you can help us understand, is this deliberate because there is Delhi elections coming up? Aam Aadmi Party is in a rather precarious position at the moment. They really have to hold their ground and sort of maintain this, at least Delhi. You know, they have to retain Delhi, as it were, as almost the last bastion, and of course Punjab as well. But the kind of performance that the party had in the recent elections, they cannot afford to be seen, sliding any further, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very true. And it's again like wherever there is a multi-party contest. So on one side, the opposition is decided, okay, it is the BJP. On the other side, you either have some parties which are working in tandem or in coalition, or they are fighting independently. So when they are fighting independently, then one of the biggest things, like wherever you see, they will say, okay, is the B team of the BJP. So that is one thing. I want to stress again and again upon this point, these statements which are being made. Suppose if I say like Mr. X is anti-national, now that's a very definitive kind of a statement. How do you go back from such a statement? Like calling Arvind Kejriwal, Chief Minister of Delhi, an anti-national is something like going beyond the whole thing. And one of the things which is why it is happening, like example, the confusion that Mamata Banerjee would like to lead the India Alliance, or things, the murmuring which we keep on listening, is that the whole India Alliance has not been able to formalize itself. Like if there would have been meetings every 3 months of the leaders at the center, there would have been some common agenda on which they have agreed upon. So you will see that the alliance which comes, and one of the things which happens is that there is a seat sharing. That's the only thing which is happening for an alliance. So they will be able to reduce or dilute BJP's influence unless and until, like for example, I am not happy with BJP, but then what are you giving it to me? Why should I vote for you? So if there is no agenda, common ground, common agenda on certain things which are happening, for example, this whole thing which is happening about this revisiting the past, which is becoming one of the most fashionable things in our country today. Like we want to revisit the past. So what is the stand of the India Alliance on that? Is there India Alliance is against it? And so they have
not taken a firm stand. But right now, what I found the most explosive part of this press conference is Aam Aadmi Party is saying you need to oust Congress from the India Alliance. So that sort of a thing was not said before, if I know it correctly. Now you call for an India Alliance bereft of Congress. Ki inko darkinar karo. And
my
this
way or
also
highway
lends itself to the whole narrative of how Mamata Banerjee is being projected as somebody who should now take center stage in the India bloc. Do you see things moving in that direction, or is this mere rhetoric?
No, I still believe that there is, we should believe in the good common sense which is there, and the leaders will come together and discuss, because if you go at the state level, there are personal animosity also within the leaders. For example, even in Maharashtra, you have seen that the whole thing was not very comfortable, the seat sharing, and it creates some kind of an acrimony among the leaders who are there. And the leaders who are sitting at the center have got a different perspective and different. For example, Rahul Gandhi said that in the Haryana election that we should give some seats to Aam Aadmi Party. Probably like giving 1 or 2 seats to Aam Aadmi Party wouldn't have made any difference to Congress, but it would have certainly created a narrative that India Alliance is fighting the election. So probably I think those things will come together, and we should always, वो कहते हैं ना, वो मुझे शेर याद नहीं आ रहा है कि दुश्मनी भी इस तरह से मत करो कि वापस जाने
जब
की, क्या
दोस्त
कहते हैं?
बने तो शर्मिंदा होना पड़े।
हाँ, तो
दुश्मनी
मतलब
करो तो ऐसे कि जब इतना भी मत करो कि जब दोस्त बने तो शर्मिंदा होना पड़े। Did I
हाँ, मतलब
recall it correctly?
नहीं, you are much better than me.
No, I
So
remember this one. So
तो
I'm going to
ये
play
बोला
out a last soundbite, Anuj, and come back to you, because I want to understand again that what policy, what political strategy is Aam Aadmi Party really adopting here when it is saying oust the Congress from India Alliance? Let's listen into Priyanka
कांग्रेस
Kakkar,
को कार्रवाई
a very
करनी पड़ेगी
firebrand
24 घंटे के
spokesperson
भीतर
of
ही।
the Aam Aadmi
नहीं तो
Party.
हम अपने बाकी घटक दलों से बात करेंगे कि कांग्रेस को गठबंधन से बाहर किया जाए। आप देखिए, कांग्रेस शांत है। जब परवेश वर्मा जी पैसे बांटते हुए आपके मीडिया चैनल्स ने दिखाया पैसे बांट रहे हैं अपनी कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंसी में, तब तो एफआईआर नहीं की कांग्रेस ने। और उस व्यक्ति के खिलाफ जिन्होंने एक शब्द नहीं कहा, चाहे हरियाणा में जब गठबंधन नहीं हुआ एक शब्द नहीं कहा, जब दिल्ली में उन्होंने हमारे किसी प्रत्याशी के लिए प्रचार नहीं किया एक शब्द नहीं कहा, जब मेयर इलेक्शन से कांग्रेस वॉकआउट करी, तो ऐसे व्यक्ति के लिए आप अपशब्द यूज करेंगे तो आपको कार्रवाई करनी होगी और बेसिस बताना होगा।
So, you know, this whole thing about the constituents of India Alliance being daggers drawn, it sends out such a wrong message. There is no India Alliance, actually. You know, if you look at it, if you have the TMC making statements as we are not part of this, you have the AAP now saying oust the Congress. We don't know who are really now the real constituents of India Alliance. And you also saw Samajwadi Party taking very different positions from Congress. So this whole idea is in such a state of disarray, Anuj.
very true, and it is not good for the strengthening or the which should be going it for alliance building, because what happens is that if there is a murmuring on one side, then the other parties also starts taking some kind of
Yeah,
a
it
thought
gives a
process.
lot of ammunition to the BJP for sure.
Yes, yeah, and
To
so for example, there was a lot of some disarray which you saw in the current parliamentary session, but then when the Ambedkar issue came in, all the India Alliance members came together. So what I believe is that I think these some top leaders in the alliance should come together and try to get some kind of a process where they talk to each other on a regular basis, like not only just a 1 hour discussion before the start of the parliament, like for example, this is our strategy, this is something, and there should be a give and take kind of a thing. Even if we are competing at the state level, let us compete, let us not fight with each other. Maybe I should say like oust Congress, that is what the Aam Aadmi Party is saying. The Congress is saying कि okay, they have not done anything, they are anti-national. So you see, these kinds of things are not going to help you, because the Delhi State Assembly election is not the election, last election which you are going to fight. There are many elections which are coming up, and the 2024 general election has shown that if the opposition votes combine and they consolidate into one group, they have a better chance to defeat BJP. So if you have to, and if you believe that this is a battle between two different ideologies, two different viewpoints, two different notions of India, or how India should be like after 10 years, then probably I think more better. Sorry, I'm in a
yeah,
public
I
place
get your
today.
point I get your point when you say the Aam Aadmi Party is being short-sighted here. If they are thinking only Delhi election, uske aage bhi hai politics, uske aage bhi elections hai. Anuj, thank you so much for joining me today, for
Thanks.
sharing your views on this contentious issue. Really appreciate. Thanks very
Thanks.
much. Right, so we move on to the next topic that we are taking up today on the sort of a spat that Virat Kohli had in Australia. And this has made news because Sam Constance and Virat Kohli were engaged in a war of words after clashing shoulders on day one of the fourth test in Melbourne. The ongoing test series between India and Australia have been anything but dull, we would all agree, with individual and collective brilliance on display from both sides, actually. Multiple clashes between players also reported in the first three tests of the 5-match series. The latest one in that So in that entire unsavory series is the clash between Indian batter Virat Kohli and Australian debutant Sam Constas on the very opening day of the test in Melbourne, which resulted in the former getting slapped with a fine of 20% of his match fee, along with one demerit point. To understand this entire saga that happened today and the penalty that was announced, I am going across to Chandresh Narayan. He's a senior cricket writer, commentator, who is with us at the moment in a sports podcaster. Good evening, Mr. Narayan. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks a lot for having me, Afrida.
Let's begin with what you made of this sordid saga that we saw. Virat Kohli, did he violate code of conduct and did he deserve this penalty?
I think it deserved this penalty, and it was quite unsavory to say the least. And I think it was completely avoidable, the whole approach that Virat Kohli had. And it was something not quite fitting the stature that he has in the game. He has a very big name in the world of cricket. He's considered to be a statesman. He's considered to be one of the legends of the game, one of the greats of the modern generation. For him to do this, and that too to a debutant on the opening day of an iconic test match, was quite uncalled for. And if you look at the footage quite clearly, Afrida, you can see that Virat Kohli is changing his path and going in and bumping into Sam Constas. I don't know if this is in reaction to what Constas was doing with the bat against India's premier bowler, Jasprit Bumrah. I don't know if he wanted to stir things up over there and sort of distract the young man, but it was quite not appropriate in my view for him to do this.
So there is a set of rules, isn't it? Like I was reading about this article, which is part of the ICC's code of conduct, which prohibits inappropriate physical conduct and contact. And the one that we saw comes within the purview of inappropriate physical contact, probably because the match referee also took all of that into account, given the circumstances that everything was, of course, caught on camera. And if I remember correctly, what it says is any form of inappropriate physical contact is prohibited. Without limitation, players will breach this regulation if they deliberately, recklessly, or negligently walk or run into shoulder of another player or umpire. So this entire thing is now out about on what basis Virat Kohli had to was penalized. Do you support this view that the umpires, the match referee, they all took a right position? Because let's remember, Kohli has not got a hearing in this. There was no hearing from his side. Do you feel Kohli deserved a hearing as well?
No, I think there was a hearing at the end of the day's play where Kohli accepted the charge that was laid on him by the match referee Andy Pycroft, who was officiating his 100th Test match. And I think the the two on-field umpires have reported Kohli's behavior, which was quite normal. And I think it was in the end it was an appropriate punishment that Kohli copped. I think most Aussies and most people around the world felt that he should be suspended for the next Test match in Sydney starting on January 3rd. That wasn't going to happen. And the fact is that he's got one demerit point. Now, what these demerit points do is that it goes and sits under your ledger in the ICC's logbook under a player's name. And the next time he commits a mistake, that will again come into play. That this demerit point that he's got for today's behavior will also come into effect and will be counted when the next punishment is meted out to him. So Kohli is actually skating on thin ice in terms of his behavior. I think he needs to be mindful of his stature in the game before he does all these things. Getting excited after taking a wicket, getting excited and geeing up the bowlers, geeing up the fellow fielders, geeing up the team, that's all fine. But physical contact of any kind, I think, is a no-no in cricket because it's not a physical sport like, say, wrestling, boxing, or so on and so forth, or even rugby, for example. It is a sport of two skilled individuals, bat and ball. You can't be doing this completely uncalled for, especially when there are so many young minds and young people watching this game and who idolize Kohli for the way he's fit, for the way he has revolutionized the way people take up the game. a commitment to the game. I think this is completely uncalled for.
I mean, I don't want to digress, but I'm so tempted to say this that, I have seen throughout different careers, cricketing careers, political careers, that sometimes talent is not enough. You need the right temperament. And Virat Kohli, with all the talent that you just mentioned and all the accolades, with the wrong temperament, you can just squander everything that you have earned. And let's hope that doesn't happen with Virat Kohli. And let's hope that this is a good enough warning. But on the other side, if you talk about Constars, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He's done exceedingly well. I mean, he's gone ahead with a smashing performance and he was undeterred. And so I think that also says something about his spirit in the game.
I think it was a breathtaking debut. I think it was one of the most breathtaking debuts that I've seen in recent times in Test cricket, because imagine the pressure. The whole world was watching. You had about 90,000 people at the MCG, historic Test match, one of the iconic moments in cricket history, to be playing a Test match on Boxing Day at the Melbourne Cricket Ground, one of the world's biggest stadiums, one of the iconic cricket stadiums. And for that kind of performance from a young man who's just about 19, and that too to take on India's best bowler, one of the best in the world right now, Jasprit Bumrah, who's being touted to be as good as, say, Malcolm Marshall and Wasim Akram. In that pantheon is regarded. For Sam Constance to come out and play some kind of amazing reverse shots, the kind of shots that we see only in T20 cricket, to do that on the first morning of a Test match on debut was simply breathtaking. Outstanding display by this young man. And I think what happened was that India was shaken up, because Bumrah is India's best bet in this series, because the others are not really pulling their weight in terms of bowling. You don't have Mohammad Shami, you don't have Umesh Yadav and Ishant Sharma, both of whom India has moved past. So India is really down to Jasprit Bumrah, and he's been India's best bowler. And for somebody to just completely come and dismantle Jasprit Bumrah in that first hour, it was an outstanding display. And I think that's also part of the reason why you saw some kind of a reaction from Virat Kohli. I know of instances in the past where even someone like a Sachin Tendulkar has sort of taken on Glenn McGrath to put him off his length by taking him on verbally. But he was doing it with a plan. He's come out much later to come out and say that he did that with a reason, because he wanted to put him off his line and length. I think Virat may have been thinking something similar, but I think the way Sam Constance batted was simply outstanding.
But now you feel that Australia has consolidated itself very well. And what do you make of the series at large, the outcomes that we can expect?
I think the series at large, I think India are playing catch up. And since the victory in the first Test match at Perth, India has been playing catch up. And you're seeing that they are making changes post facto. So you saw Rohit Sharma coming in. They lost the second Test match at Adelaide under lights. Then the third Test match was a hard-fought draw. Again, they were playing catch-up. Then Ashwin retired, and this Test match again, they realized that they are a bowler short, so they bring in someone like a Washington Sundar and dropped Shubman Gill. The bottom line is that the skipper, Rohit Sharma, is not scoring runs, and that is telling in the way he's leading the side. He's looking lost for ideas. He's looking lost on the field, and India is completely out of ideas. So they are constantly reacting to situation rather than being ahead of the game like they were at Perth in the first Test match.
So it's visible that India is sort of trying to catch up. We leave it at that for now. Thank you so much, Chandresh Narayanan, for joining us, for sharing your views on this topic. A pleasure. Right, with that, we wind up today's episode of Viewpoint. Do stay on with us. There's lots that's coming up. I want to leave you with the press conference that made headlines today, because Aam Aadmi Party has now called for the ouster of Congress Party from the India bloc. So who, according to them, should lead the India bloc? Will it be Mamata Banerjee? Will it be Arvind Kejriwal? I leave all of you to think about it and to make of this particular statements being made.
आज तक अजय माकन ने या कांग्रेस पार्टी ने दिल्ली में किसी बीजेपी के नेता को एंटी नेशनल नहीं बोला। हम राष्ट्र विरोधी हैं, अरविंद केजरीवाल राष्ट्रद्रोही हैं। यह किस प्रकार का बयान है? कल मैंने देखा एफआईआर दर्ज करा रहे हैं आप अरविंद केजरीवाल के खिलाफ। अरविंद केजरीवाल वो शख्स है जिन्होंने दिल्ली में कांग्रेस पार्टी के प्रत्याशियों के लिए प्रचार किया। अरविंद केजरीवाल वो शख्स है जिन्होंने चंडीगढ़ तक में जाके कांग्रेस पार्टी के लिए प्रचार किया चुनाव में। आम आदमी पार्टी लगातार संसद के मुद्दों पे जो फैसला होता है कांग्रेस पार्टी के साथ खड़े होते हैं, और आप हमारे नेता को एंटी नेशनल कर रहे हैं। एफआईआर दर्ज करा रही यूथ कांग्रेस अरविंद केजरीवाल के खिलाफ। एक बीजेपी के नेता के खिलाफ कांग्रेसियों ने आज तक कोई एफआईआर नहीं दर्ज कराई। अब केजरीवाल पे एफआईआर दर्ज करा रहे हैं। हरियाणा का चुनाव हुआ, अंत तक हमारा प्रयास रहा कि हम मिलकर लड़ें, लेकिन कांग्रेस पार्टी उसके लिए तैयार नहीं हुई। हम चुनाव लड़े, लेकिन एक भी अपशब्द, एक भी किसी के खिलाफ कोई गलत बयानी हमने नहीं की। एक बयान पूरे हरियाणा में दिखा दीजिए। अरविंद केजरीवाल जी भी चुनाव प्रचार में करने के लिए गए, आतिशी जी भी गई, मनीष सिसोदिया जी भी गए, सारे हमारी पार्टी के बड़े नेता गए। किसी एक ने भी एक शब्द नहीं बोला कांग्रेस पार्टी के खिलाफ, उनके नेताओं के खिलाफ। आज कांग्रेस पार्टी की सूची आप देखिए, लगता है बीजेपी के दफ्तर से बन के आ रही। आप इसकी समीक्षा कीजिए। ऐसे ऐसे लोगों को चुनाव में उतारा जा रहा है जिनका मकसद सिर्फ और सिर्फ आम आदमी पार्टी को नुकसान पहुंचाना है। संदीप दीक्षित को कौन लड़ा रहा है केजरीवाल जी के खिलाफ? कौन उनका इंतजाम कर रहा है चुनाव लड़ाने का? तो इसलिए अब सारी हदें पार हो चुकी हैं, सारी सीमाएं पार हो चुकी हैं। अपमान का, एफआईआर दर्ज कराने का, एंटी नेशनल बोलने का जो दुस्साहस अजय माकन और उनकी पार्टी ने किया है, मैं मांग करता हूं कांग्रेस पार्टी से कि 24 घंटे के अंदर अजय माकन के खिलाफ कार्रवाई करें, वरना इंडिया गठबंधन के जो और भी घटक दल हैं उनसे हम लोग मांग करेंगे कि कांग्रेस को इंडिया गठबंधन से अलग करें। ये मुझे अपनी बात कहनी थी। मैं निवेदन करूंगा दिल्ली की मुख्यमंत्री आतिशी जी से कि वो अपनी बात रखें।
कांग्रेस के बयानों से, कांग्रेस के एक्शन से ये बिल्कुल साफ हो गया है कि दिल्ली के चुनाव के लिए कांग्रेस ने भारतीय जनता पार्टी से साठगांठ कर ली है। ये बिल्कुल साफ हो गया है। कल कांग्रेस के एक बड़े नेता अजय माकन जी कहते हैं अरविंद केजरीवाल जी एंटी नेशनल हैं। मैं कांग्रेस पार्टी से पूछना चाहती हूं, आपने आज तक भारतीय जनता पार्टी के किसी भी नेता के खिलाफ ऐसा आरोप लगाया क्या? उन पे ये सवाल उठाए क्या? नहीं उठाए। लेकिन आज कांग्रेस पार्टी आम आदमी पार्टी पे, अरविंद केजरीवाल जी पे एंटी नेशनल होने के आरोप लगा रही है। दूसरा उनका जो कृत है, कल कांग्रेस पार्टी ने अरविंद केजरीवाल जी के खिलाफ और मेरे खिलाफ एक एफआईआर दर्ज कराई। क्यों? बीजेपी के खिलाफ क्या आज तक कांग्रेस ने कोई कंप्लेंट करी, कोई एफआईआर करवाई है? नहीं करवाई। लेकिन आम आदमी पार्टी के नेताओं के खिलाफ करवा रहे हैं। तीसरी बात, हमें आधिकारिक सूत्रों से पता चला है कि कांग्रेस के जो प्रत्याशी हैं उनका चुनाव का खर्चा भारतीय जनता पार्टी से आ रहा है। भारतीय जनता पार्टी कांग्रेस के प्रत्याशियों की फंडिंग कर रही है। इसमें प्रमुख संदीप दीक्षित जी हैं, जिनको भारतीय जनता पार्टी से ऐसा सुनने में आया है कि फंड मिल रहा है। इनमें प्रमुख फरहाद सूरी हैं, जो जंगपुरा से चुनाव लड़ रहे हैं और सुनने में आया है कि उनको भारतीय जनता पार्टी से करोड़ों में फंड आ रहा है। तो आज हम कांग्रेस पार्टी से ये पूछना चाहते हैं कि वो दिल्ली में भारतीय जनता पार्टी को क्यों चुनाव लड़वा रहे हैं। अगर उन्हें आम आदमी पार्टी से दिक्कत है, अगर उन्हें लगता है हम एंटी नेशनल हैं, तो लोकसभा चुनाव में उन्होंने गठबंधन में चुनाव क्यों लड़ा? क्यों अरविंद केजरीवाल से प्रचार करवाया? यह बिल्कुल साफ हो गया है कि दिल्ली के चुनाव में कांग्रेस के दिल्ली के नेताओं ने भारतीय जनता पार्टी से साठगांठ कर ली है। आम आदमी पार्टी को हराने के लिए साठगांठ करी है, भारतीय जनता पार्टी को जिताने के लिए साठगांठ करी है। अगर कांग्रेस पार्टी भारतीय जनता पार्टी को नहीं जिताना चाहती, अगर उनकी भारतीय जनता पार्टी से साठगांठ नहीं है, तो फिर वो अगले 24 घंटे में अजय माकन के खिलाफ एक्शन लें, जिन्होंने अरविंद केजरीवाल जी को एंटी नेशनल कहा। वो यूथ कांग्रेस के नेताओं के खिलाफ एक्शन लें, जिन्होंने अरविंद केजरीवाल जी और मेरे खिलाफ एफआईआर दर्ज कराई। कांग्रेस के नेता दिल्ली वालों को बताएं कि संदीप दीक्षित जी, फरहाद सूरी जी का चुनाव लड़ने का पैसा कहां से आ रहा है। और अगर कांग्रेस पार्टी अपने नेताओं के खिलाफ एक्शन नहीं लेती है, तो फिर आम आदमी पार्टी इंडिया गठबंधन के बाकी सभी घटक दलों से बात करेगी कि कांग्रेस पार्टी के साथ अब एक अलायंस में नहीं रहा जा सकता, क्योंकि ये साफ हो गया है कि कांग्रेस पार्टी दिल्ली में भारतीय जनता पार्टी को चुनाव लड़वाने और चुनाव जिताने का प्रयास कर रही है।
जिस प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस का आप संजय जी जिक्र कर रहे हैं, उसमें अजय माकन ने ये भी कहा है कि जो गठबंधन हुआ लोकसभा चुनाव के दौरान वो एक भूल थी।
भूल थी तो अपने पार्टी के नेताओं से उसके बारे में बात करें। हमारा तो सीधा ये कहना है, कभी आपने अजय माकन के मुंह से बीजेपी के किसी नेता के लिए ये सुना कि वो एंटी नेशनल है? आम आदमी पार्टी के नेता केजरीवाल जी, जिनको 3 बार दिल्ली के लोगों ने मुख्यमंत्री बनाया, चौथी बार उनको भारी बहुमत से, प्रचंड बहुमत से लोग जिताने जा रहे हैं, वो एंटी नेशनल है। आप ऐसी भाषा का प्रयोग करेंगे? और अजय माकन वही काम करते हैं जो उनको बीजेपी वाले कहते हैं। उनके गाइड जो हैं वो बीजेपी वाले हैं, उन्हीं के हिसाब से चलते हैं।
अरविंद जी, जिस तरह से आप लोग 2 कैंडिडेट का जिक्र कर रहे हैं, संदीप दीक्षित और फरहाद सूरी, इनको चुनाव लड़ने का पैसा भारतीय जनता पार्टी दे रही है, ऐसे सूत्रों से आप लोगों को खबर मिल रही है। क्या ये नहीं दिखा रहा है कि आप लोग इस बात से सशंकित हैं कि ऐसे लोग चुनाव मैदान में आ रहे तो आप लोग हार जाएंगे?
देखिए, हमने 2 कैंडिडेट का उदाहरण दिया है, लेकिन अगर आप बाकी कांग्रेस पार्टी की प्रत्याशियों की सूची भी देखिएगा, तो बिल्कुल शंका पैदा होती है कि यह सूची भारतीय जनता पार्टी के कार्यालय में बनी है। इसलिए बनी है कि आम आदमी पार्टी के कुछ वोट काटे जाए, क्योंकि कांग्रेस तो जीत नहीं सकती है। आम आदमी पार्टी के अगर वोट कुछ कम हो तो भारतीय जनता पार्टी को वो जिता सके, ऐसा उनका प्रयास है। बिल्कुल यही हमारा आरोप है कि कांग्रेस पार्टी बीजेपी के साथ साठगांठ कर रही है, बीजेपी को दिल्ली में चुनाव जिताने के लिए। और अगर कांग्रेस की नेशनल पार्टी इस पूरे षड्यंत्र में दिल्ली कांग्रेस यूनिट के साथ नहीं है, तो वो दिल्ली कांग्रेस यूनिट के नेताओं पर एक्शन ले, ये हमारी डिमांड है।
इससे बड़ा आरोप लगा रहे हैं संदीप दीक्षित का ये कहना है।
हंसी आती ना कभी कभी। मैं तो यही कह रहा हूं कि इन्होंने पिछले 11-12 साल से शीला जी पे आरोप नहीं लगाए, इन्होंने तो शरद पवार पे भी आरोप लगाए थे, इन्होंने तो मुलायम सिंह जी पे भी आरोप लगाए थे। वो दूसरी बात है कि अखिलेश जी से गलबैयां करते घूमते हैं। आज वही शरद पवार इनके लिए सबसे क्लीन कैंडिडेट हो गए हैं। ये तो लालू जी पे भी आरोप लगाया करते थे, आज उनके बेटे के साथ घूम रहे हैं। ये चाहते हैं कि उन लोगों पे जिनको ये सबसे भ्रष्ट माना करते थे, इन्होंने कहा था शरद पवार हिंदुस्तान का सबसे भ्रष्ट नेता है, उनसे कह रहे हैं कि दूसरी पार्टियों को अलग कर दो। तो ये इनकी नैतिकता को तो कभी विश्वास ही नहीं किया जा सकता है। और जहां तक इनके सवालों की बात है, इनके आरोपों की बात है, इनसे कहो प्रूव करो ना, सरकार तो तुम्हारी है।
उम्मीदवारी क्या चैलेंजेस है केजरीवाल के सामने जो सीधा आरोप आप पर है कि संदीप दीक्षित को फंडिंग भाजपा से हो रही है?
भाई पूछो, इन्हीं से पूछो कि ये मेरे आरोपों पे इतनी उत्तेजित क्यों हो गई। ये खुद ही कहते थे, करीबन आज से मुझे याद है 3-4 महीने पहले, इनके जितने नेता टीवी पे आते थे कहते थे कि हमारी बीजेपी की सीधी लड़ाई है और बीजेपी को हम चारों खाने चित्त कर रहे हैं। और जब कांग्रेस की बात आती थी तो कहते थे कांग्रेस का कोई बेस ही नहीं है। तो अगर कांग्रेस का कोई बेस ही नहीं है तो हमारी बातों में इतने परेशान क्यों हो रहे हैं?
लेकिन अजय माकन कांग्रेस का नेता है, अल्टीमेटम आम आदमी पार्टी दे रही है कि 24 घंटे के अंदर अजय माकन को हटाओ, क्योंकि उन्होंने एंटी नेशनल कहा अरविंद केजरीवाल को। क्या आप भी मानते हैं एंटी नेशनल है और कार्रवाई कांग्रेस करे? ये दबाव है आम आदमी पार्टी की तरफ।
देखिए, ये आप अजय जी से पूछिए उन्होंने क्या उन पर इल्जाम लगाए हैं, क्या उन पर इल्जाम नहीं लगाए हैं। हम कहते हैं ये 24 घंटे का छोड़ दो भाई, मैं कल से एक एक चीज पर इनसे हर 24 घंटे का सवाल पूछूंगा। कल के प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस के बाद हर 24 घंटे में यही जवाब दे दे। मैं तो 10 साल से इनसे सवाल पूछ रहा हूं, 10 साल में तो इनका जवाब नहीं आया।
तो इंडिया गठबंधन में क्या टेक है आम आदमी पार्टी का?
नहीं, इंडिया गठबंधन में कोई टेक नहीं है। जब आदमी गिरता है, टूटता है ना, तो अगल बगल सहारा ढूंढता है। और अरविंद केजरीवाल की पुरानी आदत है रोने की। एक वो जो निकम्मा बच्चा होता है ना, वो जब खुद कुछ नहीं कर पाता तो अगल बगल सहारा ढूंढता है। ये बेचारे सहारा ढूंढ रहे हैं, आज बहुत बुरी हालत में हैं। इनको लग रहा है कि कांग्रेस के हमले से दिल्ली की भी सरकार इनके हाथ जा रही है। इनके पंजाब के विधायक तैयार हैं भागने के लिए और इनका नामो निशान मिट जाएगा अगर इनके हाथ से दिल्ली की सरकार चली गई।
हार रहे हैं या कांग्रेस और भाजपा मिलकर हरा रही है?
कोई मिलके नहीं हराता था, जनता हराती है। कोई ये याद रखिएगा, कोई पार्टी नहीं किसी को हराती, जनता हरा रही है। अगर जनता चाहेगी कि हारेंगे तो कोई इनको बचा नहीं सकता, और मुझे तो यही लग रहा है।
भाजपा का धुर विरोधी पार्टी कांग्रेस है, लेकिन आरोप यह है कि भाजपा से ही सांठगांठ आप लोगों की है।
वो ठीक है, कर ले सांठगांठ, वो तो इनके बोलने से क्या होता है भाई। हमने तो कभी नहीं कहा था कि ऊपर केजरीवाल नीचे राहुल जी, इन्होंने कहा, सॉरी ऊपर मोदी नीचे राहुल जी, इन्होंने कहा था ना ऊपर मोदी नीचे केजरीवाल। इन्होंने, आप मुझे एक चीज बता दो, ऐसा क्यों होता है कि उन्हीं राज्यों में लड़ते हैं जहां कांग्रेस नंबर 2 या नंबर 1 की पार्टी है? कभी बंगाल में देखा आपने आम आदमी को लड़ते हुए? मैं पूछ रहा हूँ, कभी तमिलनाडु में देखा आम आदमी को लड़ते हुए? आप पूछिए, जो पार्टी उसी प्रदेश में लड़ती है जहां कांग्रेस सशक्त पार्टी है और वहां नहीं लड़ती है जहां कांग्रेस कमजोर है या नंबर 3 या नंबर 4 पर है, तो किसका ये विरोध कर रहे हैं बता दीजिए मुझे।